Over the last several decades, many U.S. households have allocated a significant portion of their budgets to unhealthy items and a smaller amount of their budget to more healthy items. This trend has reversed itself recently as spending on alcoholic beverages, fast food restaurant meals, and tobacco products has declined, while expenditures on vegetables and healthy foods have increased. Why has such a change occurred? People make choices intending to maximize their levels of satisfaction. Economics helps us understand why people make certain choices. A consumer must choose between approximately 48,750 items in a typical U.S. supermarket. Economists assume that for the most part, people will make rational decisions. Utility analysis is a means of examining how consumers make those choices. So how do economists define utility? How do consumers choose goods and services to maximize their utility given constraints they face? Generally, economists assume that rational behavior for consumers means that their choices are made with the intent to make themselves and others they care about as well off as possible. Consumers make these decisions given their scarce income resources, so we would assume that our analysis can be based at least in part on dollars and cents analysis. We have used the term constrained optimization in our class, where consumers will generally strive to optimize their utility with a combination of goods and services they choose to buy given their budget constraints. Economists refer to the enjoyment or satisfaction that people obtain from consuming goods and services as utility. Utility cannot be directly measured, but for now, suppose that it could. As people consume more of an item, think about your favorite food, their total utility would change. For the most part, the first item consumed will produce the most marginal utility, so that subsequent items have diminishing marginal utility. But consider this situation. You have season tickets to the Utah Jazz because basketball is your passion. Your seats cost you the equivalence of $35 per game per seat. A coworker who knows that you have tickets offers you $100 for your 2 tickets to the next game with the NBA champions. What would your rational decision be? Would it be purely based on dollars and cents? What do you decide to do? The law of diminishing marginal utility states that as consumers consume more of a good or service during a specified amount of time, they will experience additional satisfaction, but at a diminishing rate. Marginal utility can be calculated using the marginal utility formula, where marginal utility equals the change in total utility divided by the change in the number of units consumed. This table shows the total utility you might receive from eating hot wings on Super Bowl Sunday. The higher the number of utils, the greater total satisfaction you will receive. Column 2 is the total utility you would receive with each wing that you consume. The chart shows in column 1 the number of wings consumed, and together with column 2 we can plot the diminishing marginal utility. Here the utility you get from eating wings is initially rising, then slows, and eventually turns downward as you reach a point of oversatiation with hot wings. The increase in utility from one wing to the next is the marginal utility of each wing. Eating the 4th wing increases utility from 46 total utils to 52 total utils. The change in utility from consuming the 4th wing is a marginal utility of 6, which is the difference between the utility gained at 3 wings and the additional utility gained at consuming the 4th wing, as can be seen from column 2. In the lower panel, the graph of marginal utility has a negative slope, which shows the law of diminishing marginal utility. Marginal utility analysis is used to determine how much of each item to purchase. The idea of getting the maximum utility from each good we purchase would be a rational goal. The way we reach maximum utility is to equate the ratio of marginal utility to price for the goods that we purchase. Each item purchased gives some marginal utility. By dividing marginal utility by the price of the item, we obtain the marginal utility per dollar spent. This is the rate at which that item allows the consumer to transform money into utility. Suppose the marginal utility per dollar obtained from hot wings was greater than that obtained from Dr. Pepper. Should you eat more wings and drink less Dr. Pepper? The way we look at this is to apply the rule of equal marginal utility per dollar spent, which states that consumers should seek to equalize their bang for the buck. There are two conditions to find the equalized marginal utility per dollar spent. First, the marginal utility of wings per dollar spent must equal the marginal utility of Dr. Pepper per dollar spent. This condition is represented by the equation at the bottom of this slide. Second, spending on wings plus the spending on Dr. Pepper must equal the amount available to be spent in order to maximize our utility. The principle of diminishing marginal utility states that as more of any good or service is consumed, the additional or extra utility declines. As more units are consumed, each successive increase in total satisfaction becomes smaller and smaller. Your decision is now influenced by the income effect and the substitution effect. If the price of wings changes from $2 to $1.50, then by rule of equal marginal utility per dollar spent, you must adjust your purchasing decision. The rule of equal marginal utility no longer holds. You can afford more than before. This is like having a higher income. Wings have become relatively less expensive to Dr. Pepper. Marginal utility, we can see that when price decreases, consumer purchasing power increases. The income effect causes the quantity demanded to increase if the normal good and decreases if it is an inferior good. The substitution effect causes the opportunity cost of consuming the good to decrease when the price decreases, which causes the quantity of the good demanded to increase. When the price increases, consumer purchasing power decreases. The income effect causes the quantity demanded to decrease if a normal good and increase if it is an inferior good. The substitution effect causes the opportunity cost of consuming a good to increase when the price increases, which causes the quantity of the good demanded to decrease. The rule of equal marginal utilities per dollar spent is seen in this equation. The marginal utility of product A divided by the price of product A is equal to the marginal utility of product B divided by the price of B, and the marginal utility of product C is divided by the price of C. As individuals, we don't usually buy just one commodity, but we buy a combination of those quantities. To reach full maximization of our utility, we would strive to have this equality for each of these goods that we consume. A consumer responds optimally to a price decrease of a product by consuming more of that product. The original price and the newly reduced price. The new price creates an optimal marginal utility where consumers demand more hamburgers. This change creates the demand curve for a new product. Deegan is indifferent to a number of combinations between two products, pizza and Coca-Cola. In other words, he will receive the same satisfaction from different combinations, and so he is indifferent to which combination he receives. Deegan will try to gain the highest level of total possible utility given his budget constraints. With these various combinations, several indifferent curves can be created. At this point, the indifference curve is just tangent to the budget line. To maximize utility, Deegan must be on the highest indifference curve allowed by his budget constraint. When the price of pizza falls from $2 per slice to $1, Deegan can now buy 10 slices of pizza per week rather than 5 in his constrained budget. At the same time, he can still afford 10 cans of Coke per week. The budget constraint rotates out along the pizza's axis to reflect this increase in his purchasing power. The slope of the budget constraint is the rate of exchange between two goods. A decrease in the price of an item causes the budget line to rotate outwards. This generates a new consumer optimum at which the individual chooses to consume more of the items.